and welcome to another Driven Catalyst live stream. It's New Music Friday, and a very big one at that, because we are going to be talking about Taylor Swift's The Life of a Showgirl. Big album release for the community, the Swiftie community, and quite frankly, the whole world, because I don't know if you've heard of her, but she is a sensation for like what? I was going to say like 20 years and counting, but like let's just go for the whole lifespan. That was me guesstimating like what? She's been like at it since she was around 15. But based on the things I'm saying on this live stream today, we're just going to start hyping up Taylor from the beginning. I am from a Star Wars family, right? And one of my favorite things ever that is just so true is like no one hates Star Wars as much as Star Wars fans. And I would say I feel pretty oppositely about Taylor Swift. I feel like a lot of Swifties ride really hard for Taylor, and I have no criticism. I'm not looking to criticize that dynamic at this current moment on live stream, is the better way to say it. But I'm going to, based on my knowledge and experience with the Star Wars community, and I'm not looking to kill anyone's joy, yuck anyone's yum. And frankly, I hope to look at the lyrics today, discuss them on live, and present as nuanced a take as possible. I am a folklore fan, first and foremost. So that's kind of the Taylor vibe that I really like. I really loved Tortured Poets Department. I thought it was lyrically strong. I'm a lyrics girly. I'm absolutely floored that she wrote and released Cold as You on her debut album, just as some credentials, right? So that is kind of my vibe. That's where I'm coming from. And I love 1989. I know how to have fun. And I guess that is the perspective I'm coming from. And if you are writing the new album High and you're having the time of your life, I'm obsessed with that for you. I love that for you. I'm not looking to change your mind. I hope you don't change your mind. Keep having fun. Love that. But I am going to be real. Like, I feel like I'm going to be a bad vibe. I don't want that for you. So just see your way out. Peace and love. And like, let's get into it. I'm going to talk about my experience listening to the album. I was pretty excited. I had it perfectly timed where I like was going to be in a car ride, like night drive vibes, for just around the perfect amount of time right after the album released. So one of the best things ever about being in Houston is that Taylor Swift albums come out at 11. So it makes like work night releases a little bit easier. So I just like really felt like, okay, this is going to be the optimal listening experience. But as someone who is a lyric oriented listener and fan, I did know that that was going to be sort of a weak spot for me as someone who likes to really dive in and analyze things. And I do think that hindered I don't know. It's hard to say whether it helped or hurt my initial reception of the album, because I very quickly was like, okay, bops on bops on bops, right? Like sonically, I'm pretty on board with most of what's going on. With the caveat, I think there are some songs that are a little bit, as I've seen on the internet, some people have described them as like Walmart radio shopping music, which frankly, time and place. And I think that's not, in terms of a album called The Life of a Showgirl, commercialism should absolutely be part of the discussion. Therefore, some of the tracks feeling like they sonically are telling that story, a very commercial story, makes sense, checks out, fine by me. And then I've seen a lot of the album referred to as earwormy, and I completely agree with that. This is the album to have fun with, I think. But as someone who, I guess, doesn't like having fun. Really like prefers to give you context, like this album released, I've been trying to sit with it and form thoughts about it for this live stream, and my approach to it was to read through some of Ophelia's lines in Hamlet. That's not the way to have fun. I know that. But I am a recovering theater kid, and I'm just so impressed continually by the storytelling and songwriting chops that Taylor Swift has. And so that's always my approach and the reason I gravitate towards so much of her music. And that is also at the root of what I struggled most with about this album. Because if we're being honest, like, I can't really relate to the life of a showgirl. Contrary to my very, very successful work live stream that you're watching right now. I know it's probably very tempting to believe that I'm like a showgirl of sorts, but no, I would say a lot of this was very unrelatable to me, which is fine. Art can be unrelatable, right? So whatever. Let's work our way through. I'm gonna kind of word vomit, if you couldn't already tell how I'm talking. Like, this is going to be a very word vomity live stream. I'm gonna word vomit my way through the album. Probably I will pull up Genius lyrics and we'll go over some things at certain points. But let's dive in with track 1, Fate of Ophelia. Of course, there's the famous Fate of Ophelia portrait that the album art, the original album art, we've gotten so many beautiful variants to consider, but the kind of go-to official album art is Taylor in the pose under the water. I've seen people saying that it's also maybe acrylic, like it looks like a preservative of sorts, which is very fascinating. But sort of her giving off that Fate of Ophelia portrait vibe. And then at a lot of the like listening events that Taylor Nation has been posting about, there is of course the like literal flower bed, the bathtub with the I guess literal flower bed. It's a bathtub, it's not a bed. But the bathtub with the flowers growing out of it, that also gives a very Fate of Ophelia vibe. I can't put a finger on where I read this, but I've certainly heard about Taylor Swift talking about her after Eras Tour regimen of like kind of not even being able to leave her bed, like just how physically draining that whole experience was. And I'm being totally honest, that experience is very compelling to me, and I really wish we had learned more about that. I do just think she has such a way with words generally in storytelling, and I would have absolutely adored to get an album talking about kind of how gritty and weird and surreal. It sounds very surreal to me. I would have liked to have heard about that experience more, and I think that's what I was expecting based on the name and the concept. But that's not what we got. And so let's just talk about what we got. So I read about the Fate of Ophelia, or I read about Ophelia, and here is a little synopsis from, this is not the Ophelia death scene, but this is, I guess, just a little bit of color that I got on Ophelia's character while reading, I don't know, one of her scenes. This is the synopsis. Reports reach Gertrude that Ophelia is mad. Ophelia enters singing about death and betrayal. Sound familiar? That is very Tortured Poets Department-esque. After Ophelia has gone, Claudius agonizes over her madness and over the stir created by the return of an angry Laertes. When Laertes breaks in on Claudius and Gertrude, Claudius asserts his innocence with regard to Polonius's death. The reappearance of the mad Ophelia is devastating to Laertes. And so I'm like, I read the synopsis, I'm reading through some of the scenes, trying to get a feel for Ophelia's character and how she's speaking. Like I said, I was a theater kid in high school, kind of a lifelong theater kid. But Hamlet's not necessarily one of my, we did Macbeth in high school. So I know gender swapped Macbeth best. So I kind of was just grasping for straws, hoping to gain more insight into Ophelia. And I do feel like this was the most illuminating in terms of me understanding why Taylor may have gravitated towards such a character. And if I were to, I guess, analyze the album as, okay, let's take Taylor out of it, if that's even possible. I feel actually more than any album before, this is maybe the hardest to take Taylor Swift out of in relation to Taylor Swift trademark and the person that we know her to, the performer that we know her to be. Because I guess I've been clocking hours as a Swiftie doing my homework since pretty seriously since Lover era. And I wasn't entrenched in what her private life may or may not look like at that point. And certainly the spectacle of what her private life might be has gained a lot of traction over the past year with Eras Tour, of course, and Travis Kelce and the NFL and every little bit of getting to see her not performing, but through the lens of a paparazzi camera that we have gotten. Because, of course, her whole thing was she disappeared off the face of the earth in the lead up to Reputation and kept life as private as possible throughout that time. It was hard to listen to the album and remove speculation almost. Like, it was just hard to not be like, oh, well, yeah, she's singing about Travi, you know? Which is always my instinct to try and not do, or to speculate in different, maybe more creative ways. Not more creative, that feels like I'm patting myself on the back, but I mean, like, try to remove myself from the paternity testing of her music in the way that she has spoken about not liking. And I try and have tried to look at her lyricism because she has consistently pointed us back to it. Dear reader, we've gotten a lot of interesting signals from Taylor Swift based on the artwork she's putting out and the things about her work that she is sort of underscoring. And this one in particular, I don't know what to make of yet. And it seems like, based on our schedule for the upcoming weekend, release weekend, that she maybe has some stuff in store, that there's maybe more. There's certainly fan speculation about it. But I still don't know what really to make of the album. I certainly have no suspected thesis statement for the album, which is, it's a toughie for me. I feel I need that. And I guess, yeah, like all building off of the idea of the fate of Ophelia. This really solidified to me almost this idea of I identify I being the speaker. That, again, I guess we'll try and disentangle from Taylor Swift. But I do feel like this is maybe a little bit like, hey, go ahead, knock yourself out. The speaker is Taylor Swift as a brand. I guess let's proceed with that in mind. That, like, the speaker being Taylor Swift as a brand is like, yep, I've just been the sad girl singing songs about being sad. And I go on Ellen, and Ellen talks about how I date all these guys and I get my heart broken. And I don't know, she obviously spoke about, like, you wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me, like, kind of feeling nothing like a mad woman. What a shame she went mad. This idea that she views herself as this caricature, doom and gloom, singing about lost love and heartbreak. Identifying with Ophelia certainly makes sense. And then this being a song about, like, you came and you saved me from just being this tragic character from a Shakespearean story. that's like frankly a side character, which is a little bit what's kind of crazy about her identifying, like over identifying with Ophelia, is it's like, well, I guess maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't know enough about Hamlet to assert that. But it's just like, Taylor Swift identifying as any side character ever is wild to me. Just because Taylor Swift is the main character in so many people's lives, you know? There are plenty of people that are like Disney adults, but with Taylor Swift, like, she is certainly the main character in the lives of people that she's never met before, which is maybe a little bit what she's pointing out. That's a little bit what not ruined the friendship, actually romantic is about, which we'll get to, I guess. But I don't know, that whole vibe it's just weird and interesting to me. I've been doing a lot of talking, and we do need to make it through more. But I guess sonically speaking, I do think Fate of Ophelia is such a bop, and I thought it was a fun, interesting track to start the album off with. I really was like, oh, is this what we're getting? And a little bit, yeah. I think a lot of the album is like, I was this tragic poet, and I've been saved from this ruinous ending where I'm just this misunderstood, doom and gloom, loveless figure. Which, like, Taylor, I never viewed you that way. And I tried my hardest not to commodify your worth in writing about sadness. I never not once thought that your happiness would discontinue you from being able to make good art. I know you probably really were overinvested and cared about my specific impression of you, but just wanted to clear that up, Taylor. Anywho, let's keep it moving. Track 2, Elizabeth Taylor. I'm actually addicted to this track. This is my favorite off the album thus far. I don't actually see any other track beating it out based on first listen. I'm addicted to it, and I have been trying to like dive into and understand Elizabeth Taylor better based on everything. But I guess the most compelling thing to do first and foremost when trying to understand this track and who Elizabeth Taylor might be to Taylor Swift is understanding the previous reference to Elizabeth Taylor, which is, and he can be my jailer, Burton to this Taylor, every lover known in comparison is a failure. Which is, it stands out to me because referencing multiple relationships, different relationships, or making art about different hypothetical romantic contexts and using Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton as sort of the example based on quick Googling about their relationship is pretty interesting to me, actually, especially if we are sort of setting this up as like within the life of a showgirl. The speaker is romanticizing this flame that saved her from the fate of Ophelia. The idea that their love affair is a Burton and Taylor love affair is pretty intense because if you look up Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, they were married multiple times. They seemed sort of on again, off again. Things were very tumultuous, but in addition to, I guess, the tumult, it seems like the things were very passionate, which I guess do with that what you will. But in terms of, I guess, understanding some of the relationship dynamics the speaker might be talking about, I don't know, it stands out to me to compare oneself to Elizabeth Taylor. As a woman, obviously, comparing oneself to Elizabeth Taylor as a woman is very, very fun because Elizabeth Taylor is a very beautiful, successful star, of course. But in terms of like the romantic life behind the scenes, I feel personally that I don't aspire to it. And so that does stand out to me, I guess. Apart from all of that, though, like, stream Elizabeth Taylor by Taylor Swift, because it's like maybe the craziest bop ever. One moment. We're at the point where I'm gonna just pull up the lyrics, because I do think like it will be like my study guide, speaking guide. But yes, okay, so the view of Portofino, that whole thing, from my understanding based on Genius Lyrics, is a direct, that's like from the relationship lore of Elizabeth Taylor. I'd cry my eyes violet, Elizabeth Taylor. Tell me for real, do you think it's forever? Been number one, but I never had two. Been number one, but I never had two, and I can't have fun if I can't have you, is a really interesting, first of all, like, hello, that's so fun, rhythmically speaking, like, putting together lyrics that, like, that scratches such a brain itch for me. But been number one, but I never had two. It's cute, it makes sense, like, obviously she's on top of the world, or the speaker in this, I guess, is a showgirl. She's on top of the world, but I never had two. Stands out to me in terms of all the right guys promised they'd stay. Under bright lights, they withered away, but you bloom. All the right guys stood out to me because I don't know. I feel like when you're talking about a relationship dynamic, learning so early into learning about this relationship dynamic, the problem being that, like, the guys were right, but they didn't stay, is interesting. Because immediately that sort of positions our Ophelia in this story as, I guess, this sort of tragic victim, which is, as we move through, things shift quite a bit when we talk about power dynamic. And if, I don't know if it even fits to conceive of this whole album as, to see it through the lens of, okay, there's one speaker telling this story. Be my New York when Hollywood hates me. You're only as hot as your last hit, baby. Ridiculous. That goes so hard. I'm sorry, like, that rocks. I am very, very, very much someone who, to an irritating degree, loves, like, when people joke about, oh, I had to, like, listen to Tortured Poets Department with a thesaurus, like, I ate that up. I was eating out of the palm of her hand. I adore a big, crazy, long-winded, I'm looking up words, I'm understanding deeper meaning. Like, I love it when the lyric does that. So I feel well within my right to say this is nothing like that. And it scratches such an itch for me that I'm just obsessed. I think everyone should get on board with Be My New York when Hollywood hates me. You're only as hot as your last hit, baby. That's so fun. I'm having a great time with that lyric. Frankly, with this whole song. What could you possibly get for the girl who has everything and nothing all at once? Babe, I would trade the Cartier for someone to trust. Just kidding. So there, I feel I'm getting mixed messages about the motives of the showgirl speaker, right? Because it does feel like, been number one, but I never had two, and I can't have fun if I can't have you. Kind of romanticizing this idea of, like, all the right guys promised they'd stay. Under bright lights, they withered away, but you bloom. The idea that, like, under pressure, this lover that she is singing about is steadfast, like, for once, because everyone else promised they'd stay, but they didn't. I guess, yeah, it's sort of, it's interesting. It's a flippant take to be like, babe, I would trade the Cartier for someone to trust. Just kidding. Like, no, actually, like, I'm fine with the Cartier. And then when we get to Honey, it's a little bit like, wait, really? I guess we're not keeping the Cartier anymore, a little bit. But let's keep moving. I don't want to get too hung up on anything because who are we kidding? I think I'm already getting pretty hung up really easily in working our way through this. But I want to try and hit as much as possible. Okay, let's look at opalite now. I had a bad habit of missing lovers past. My brother used to call it eating out of the trash. It's never going to last. The idea of this grass is always greener. Now we're learning a bit more about the speaker, right? So when we revisit Elizabeth Taylor, I was just talking about how it's really interesting to say all the right guys never stayed, because immediately the speaker is positioning themselves as kind of this tragic victim of like, well, yeah, I would have loved all of these guys if they had just stayed, right? Like, there's not a lot of reflection, I guess, on why things ended or what really went wrong, other than, I guess, the idea that they withered away under the bright lights. There's still this, I guess, okay, there's something there. The idea that they withered away under the bright lights, and now she's stuck under these bright lights. And so she has this bad habit of missing lovers past, because every time she revisits them, it's like there's this like rose-colored stage light illuminating everything, which is again a little bit interesting when you think about the idea of Ophelia's character in Hamlet as being sort of this doom and gloom actress. That it seems out of character for Ophelia to have sort of this rose-colored stage light that she is seeing everyone illuminated with. But I do love, like, I have a bad habit of missing lovers past. My brother used to call it eating out of the trash. That is a great line. I thought my house was haunted. I used to live with ghosts, and all the perfect couples said, when you know, you know. That does feel very Taylor Swift, songwriting wise. I do like that. And I would say that connects with sort of what I sort of skimmed when I was reading through some of the lines that Ophelia has. She talks about sort of the haunted, I don't know. That's very much tonally in line with how Ophelia speaks in Hamlet. All of the foes and all of the friends, they've seen it before, they'll see it again. Life is a song, it ends when it ends. So that's interesting too, in terms of, okay, take a drink of water every time that I say something is interesting as I work my way through this. We'll all be very hydrated. But again, in terms of conceiving of the world through the lens of a showgirl, and that coloring what reality is and how things progress in the arc of things and what's real. Life is a song, it ends when it ends, is, I guess it grants us more insight into how things are building up in this world that we are moving through across the album. Now we get into sort of an interesting place, in my opinion, because if you are a Taylor Swift fan, lightning as a concept, as it connects to the discography, as it connects to Bleachella, lightning, I feel like, has carried this lightning strikes every time you move. Everyone's watching her, but she's looking at you. It's evocative of a certain era in Taylor's life and career, I suppose. And so it's interesting to have it in this context. It's all right, you were dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night, but now the sky is opalite. If you think about the other times we've talked about, gave you the blue and then purple pink skies. When you think about the sky was maroon, now the sky is opalite. And how some of I used to think love would be burning red, but it's golden, like daylight. Now the sky is opalite is very interesting. Let's look up opalite. I feel like off the top of my head, if I'm thinking about opalite jewelry, it's like seafoam. Yeah. All right. I would say the sky is opalite pretty often-ish. Maybe I'm just spoiled by Texas and our clear skies and beautiful sunsets at times. Like I feel like that's sort of a golden hour sky of sorts. Not quite. But I guess if you're looking at the sky on the opposite side of sunset, like where it's setting away from, that I guess is that's to me what now the sky is opalite. Sleepless in the onyx night, now the sky is opalite. Probably overthinking it though. Never made no one like you before. Huh? Is that accurate? Made. That stands out to me. I don't have a great insight into what that means, but I'm just going to say, hey, that's standing out to me. I'm going to turn it over to the Swiftie community. Never made. Is that a typo? Never made no one like you before is very interesting. You had to make your own sunshine, but now the sky is opalite. Gonna keep skimming it. Really interesting. You were in it for real. She was in her phone, and you were just a pose. And don't we try to love? We give it all we got. You finally left the table, and what a simple thought. You're starving till you're not. I think we have been given such cohesive stories that have been pretty visual and easy to follow across Taylor's discography that this is throwing me a little bit. Like, we're at a table, but also we're dancing through lightning strikes. I'm pretty okay with extended metaphors generally. I do pretty well with them. Not to brag. That was totally like, y'all, like, let's all roll our eyes at me in unison. This is a safe space for that. But yeah, I'm having a hard time cobbling together the story a little bit. Shelter, here with me, my love, thunder like a drum. This life will beat you up. This is just a temporary speed bump. But failure brings you freedom, and I can bring you love. Don't you sweat it, baby. We're dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night. Now the sky's opalite. So I guess just sort of talking about relationship struggles and kind of like the sun rising on things. Let's talk about father figure. So this has an interpolation of father figure, which from my understanding is the classic. Let me make sure. Let me check. George Michael song that just blew up on TikTok, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yes. Okay. Correct. I'm surprised to say I really don't. That interpolation, I can't necessarily hear it much, and I don't understand at all, including Father Figure by George Michael in a song that is so The Godfather coded. Maybe I'm just not understanding. I'll say sonically, I like this song a lot. I think the rhythm of it is what really appeals to me more than anything. I love the lyric, "This love is pure profit, just step into my office." That is a very fascinating lyric. It's very compelling to me in terms of what she may be saying about the life of a showgirl, in terms of what she may be saying about show business, in terms of what love may mean to her at all. Is confounding the right word? I think it is. Let's double check since we're live streaming. Yeah, there's very confounding statements about power dynamics across the album, right? So we've kind of got this victim complex set up a little bit with Ophelia in terms of if our speaker is positioning herself similarly to Ophelia. I don't know that I trust the narrative. I don't trust the narrator. I don't know that I feel like someone who identifies with Ophelia, but is like also saying, I was saved from the fate of Ophelia, and talking about, oh, like my brother always says, like, I gotta stop with the grass is greener type thing. I don't know that I trust our narrator. in this context. But now we are kind of being led down this dark alleyway, being told, I'll be your father figure. I drink that brown liquor. I can make deals with the devil because I won't say the rest. This love is pure profit. Just step into my office. They'll know your name in the streets. Leave it to me. I protect the family. What family is very interesting. This is also our first introduction to a concept, like the concept, I guess, of family. And I protect the family and sort of the tone of this whole track on, again, the album called The Life of a Showgirl, and us kind of this being sort of a weird sort of family that is entrenched in fame, not faith. Is very fascinating to me, especially because as we move through the album, we get more into we start talking about building a family in a different way, in a way I'm not really interested in talking about. It gets a little yucky for me. But it's interesting that our first introduction to that concept is this weird mafia godfather context. And again, I feel like I have this unreliable narrator, but now they're telling me that they drink whiskey and they'll make deals under the table. It's all very disillusioning and confusing. Which, from everything that has come out about the entertainment industry recently, feels no surprise a little bit. You pulled the wrong trigger. The empire belongs to me. You'll be sleeping with the fishes. That is, of course, a direct reference to The Godfather. You made a deal with the got the place surrounded. I do like this. This is a great line. Whose portrait's on the mantle? Who's covered up your scandals? Mistake my kindness for weakness and find your card canceled. Very, very different position than if a man talks, then I owe him nothing. I don't regret it one bit because he had it coming. I guess we're there, but then also if he drops my name, then I owe him nothing. I guess no. Everything I just said, I guess that's all within the same universe. This is just like a very interesting. Once again, it's just not relatable to me, I guess. I don't know. Which is fine. I don't need it to be relatable. I'm just trying to make sense of the story that we're moving through in this context. But so yeah, I would say father figure is immediately kind of an outlier. I don't understand the artistic choice to interpolate father figure other than the fact that it just popped off on TikTok. We could look at that from the commercial perspective of recognizing what TikTok has done for the music world, though, of recent. And we can really see that as a fan service choice that is motivated by commercial means. And I think that is very interesting when we look at the rollout of this album and the fact that it's getting a theatrical release, and presumably the theatrical release is not just going to be, but it's going to be a music video premiere, a lyric video from my understanding, and then Taylor talking about the making of the album, which is previously content that we have gained access to for free on social media. The fact that it's being all rolled into this big thing that can be monetized this time is interesting. Sometimes things get a theatrical release, and this one is certainly being called a viewing party or a listening party for the album. And I feel like that has sort of a community building tone to it. I don't necessarily feel like the fanfare of this is make the friendship bracelets, take the moment and taste it. It feels very showgirl, showmanship for showmanship's sake a little bit. So maybe the medium is the message, right? The means of which it's being peddled to us is also part of what we're meant to be thinking about as we interact and engage with this album. That's a fascinating thing to consider, I think. But yeah, I would say father figure really, it's compelling to me. I would honestly prefer to be more in that world in terms of talking about fame and what the life of a showgirl might be. I'd rather be in the father figure lens for the album, or I guess the not saved from the Ophelia part of it. Like I'd really like to see a deep dive on like what Elizabeth Taylor means and what Ophelia means as characters from sort of the pop culture lexicon. I think I'm very intrigued by that, as I really like the idea of Cassandra from Tortured Poets Department, and how that story situates itself and works its way into the story Tortured Poets Department tells. And so I was kind of looking for that in The Fate of Ophelia and Elizabeth Taylor and within the Life of the Showgirl narrative, but I do feel like that's missing for me personally. But this album is obviously for way more people than just me, so no big qualm with that. That's just my perspective on it. Eldest Daughter. This is a track that in the lead up to the album, I had seen countless people really looking forward to, expecting it to leave them in shambles. I think people were expecting it. Track 4 is usually the one that cuts pretty deep. I think people were kind of expecting it to be a traditional track 4. If I'm getting that right. All Too Well is a track 4, right? I may be totally mixing it up. It could be that it's track 5s usually that do it. And in which case, I think people were just anticipating Eldest Daughter to really cut deep. So opening with the line, everybody's so punk on the internet, everybody's so unbothered till they're not, every joke's just trolling and memes, sad as it seems, apathy is hot. Totally honest, those lyrics, they missed the mark for me. I have been afflicted by a terminal uniqueness. That is a line that, did you hear my covert narcissism disguised as altruism like some kind of congressman? I love the way she wove those lyrics. I similarly love, I have been afflicted by a terminal uniqueness. I've been dying just from trying to seem cool. That as a sentiment, I think, is very compelling. To me, it feels cheapened by everybody's so punk on the internet. Everybody's so unbothered till they're... I don't mind everybody so unbothered till they're not. Trolling and memes just feels... Trolling and memes when we're talking about Elizabeth Taylor and Ophelia feels anachronistic to me. It takes me out of whatever world we are building. To be honest. But again... This album is for more than just me, and that is totally fine. Chorus. I've seen memes comparing the "But I'm not a BB and this isn't Savage" to "But I'm not a princess, this ain't a fairy tale." That is quite literally such a funny comparison to make. That's all I really have to say. I'm never gonna leave you out. So many traitors, smooth operators, but I'm never gonna break that vow. Something that was really interesting to me about Eldest Daughter is, to me, it feels like we start to talk about like the role of a partner and a wife almost, in terms of never going to break that vow. We start comparing vows and the role of eldest, like, sorry, I'm stumbling. Comparing eldest daughter responsibilities to the role of a wife is really fascinating to me. And it makes me think of, like, if we just whittle everything down, put the song aside, comparing eldest daughter vibe to the role of a wife makes me think of A Doll's House, the play. I would have loved some of that woven into the life of a showgirl. And that's Henrik Ibsen, yeah? Or no? I may be totally off base. No, it is Henrik Ibsen. Ha! I told y'all I'm a theater kid. I'm sorry. I would have loved, thematically speaking, to have been sort of in that realm in terms of talking about and analyzing the role of womanhood and showgirls and the way we conceive of the role of a wife which I feel like we're trying to get into the, maybe that's a sort of a stretch, but I guess just in terms of like, I'm never going to break that vow. I'm never going to leave you now. It's also pretty interesting if we assume that this whole album is coming from the same speaker. I'm never going to break that vow. I'm never going to leave you now as a reassurance is interesting considering initially we were told that our speaker was being left, not doing the leaving. So, what to make of that? Every eldest daughter was the first lamb to slaughter. I frankly really like that line. So we all dressed up as wolves and we look fire. Hate that. I hate we look fire. I just know from the bottom of my heart, Taylor Swift could have spent maybe like 5 more minutes and come up with a better and we look fire. I feel mean. I'm sorry. But I just think like this is coming from a place of I like every eldest daughter was the first lamb to slaughter. So we all dressed up as wolves as a lyrical sequence. I like that so much that and we looked fire being kind of where we end up with the phrase and sentiment misses the mark for me in a pretty big way. By comparison, the rest of the line ending on "and we looked fire" is tough. Yeah, and then I guess like talking about, the partner in theory in this world is every youngest child is maybe the youngest child. So every youngest child felt they were raised up in the wild, but now you're home. I think talking about like relationship dynamics and understanding the family dynamic that you come from and then watching that family dynamic move into a relationship dynamic as you build your own family is again a pretty compelling theme to explore musically. Do I think we did that with this song? Not necessarily, but she got me thinking about it. Gonna keep it moving. Ruin the friendship. From my understanding, I've seen online speculation about what this song could be about. And the speculation is about what it could be about from a Taylor Swift, not trademark standpoint, from a sort of paternity testing Taylor Swift's real life standpoint. And if there's any credence to that, out of respect, I think I just probably won't touch this song. But I will say it's fascinating. I think a lot of the imagery in it fits a little bit with the imagery in the bonus tracks or the deluxe tracks from 1989 Taylor's version. And I guess that's all. That's the only real thought I have. Apart from, I guess let's go to. My advice is this is the post-chorus. My advice is to always ruin the friendship. Better that than regret it for all time. Should have kissed you anyway. And my advice is to always answer the question. What question? That's my question. Better than to ask it all your life. Should have kissed you anyway. In the context of Question from Midnights, that stood out to me. And I guess those are my only real leading thoughts on this track. But in terms of figuring out how it fits into the rest of the story, I again really struggle, unless it's like maybe just a firsthand example or evidence of some of the grass is greener theory that we get insight into when we talk about the speaker's brother. Says, you're always thinking about past lovers. That I guess this is example of that there's sort of this sense of regret. Actually romantic. This song, I'm so chronically online. I really am. I'm not cool enough, I think, is the issue to know the Charlie XCX, from my understanding, lore of this. And maybe that's just more of the paternity testing that we are consistently told not to do by Taylor Swift. But from my understanding, the boring Barbie thing is a little bit on the nose. Yeah, don't really have much to say about this track other than it's pretty strange to me. It's strange on like an album. Again, it's like I do not trust the narrator at all, the speaker in question, because we're kind of told to romanticize whatever relationship is at the core of this thing. And maybe that is the point, is the idea of the fate of Ophelia, like, oh, thank God you saved me from dying alone and sad. And what is it even that you are? What is it even that you are? Because no man has ever loved me like you do. Unless that's meant to be sort of tongue-in-cheek. Gotta hand it to you, no man's ever loved me like you do. Like, you're obsessed with me. You're tearing me down. You think I'm tacky. I don't know. Showgirl diss track, I guess, you know? But it is fascinating, and I guess it does, in terms of doing an exploration of fame and showgirlmanship. Within this world, we're learning that maybe the expectation of sisterhood and camaraderie and solidarity doesn't exist from the perspective of this speaker. Or again, this is sort of being used as another reminder of the narrator maybe not being like an ethical or moral example, so to speak, or someone to aspire to, I guess. So it's a sort of like, even though this person has broken through and been saved from the fate of Ophelia, this isn't a hero story, is maybe one way to take that. Wish list. What to say about wish list, really? This is our track 8. They want that yacht life under chopper blades. They want those bright lights and Balenci shades. The next line, talking about sort of body trends, the idea that like feminine bodies have been commodified, or within like pop culturally speaking, the idea that like there's body trends at all is pretty insane. That's kind of a lot to get from that one line, but I think that's essentially like the discourse that we can assume is implied there. They want that complex female character. They want that critical smash Palme d'Or, which I don't. Okay, Golden Palm, highest prize award, director, feature film. I see. Okay, they want it all. And I just want you, have a couple kids, got the whole block looking like you. I'm going to put it on the record. I hate that line. It's bad. It's not bad. I hate that line. You know what? It's not for me. I think there are probably people that are in the family planning stage of life, and maybe they are obsessed. Maybe that line for them is going crazy in the car for them right now. Have a couple kids, got the whole block looking like you. You know what? Yeah. If you're like if you want kids and you have a partner and you're doing all that, like, love that line. I love that line for you, because you know what? I don't think anyone said it, and now you have it. So jam to your heart's content, girly folks, friends, Swifties. I'm happy. That's not for me. But yeah, I don't know. The whole block looking like you just it's hyperbolic about the situation at hand, in such a funny way that it doesn't resonate with me in particular. And there's just sort of, it gives a little bit, when people have kids so that they can be surrounded by people who believe the same way as them and look like them, that being a motive for procreate. I'm definitely like overextending this lyric, right? This is absolutely an overextension on my part. I understand. I'm just trying to explain why I struggle with it. It gives that in a way that I have a hard time being on board with, but it is interesting. But yeah, I guess this song is kind of another example of what, like, people want it all. The grass is always greener. There being this sense of something's got to give a little bit. And this is some different version of Paper Rings. Once again, as a lover girly, I like Paper Rings. I think the way that that sentiment is peddled in Paper Rings a bit better. But as we'll get to in Wood, which is the next track, I think we learn why maybe Wish List is the evolution of Paper Rings. So let's talk about Wood. That actually does feel like a pretty great segue. The line Daisy's bare naked, I was distraught. It's cute, like the he loves me not, like classic thing. Because I was so excited about Life of a Showgirl, and I know Miss Taylor Swift loves The Great Gatsby. When I hear about Daisy, I think Daisy Buchanan, and especially because I hope she'll be a beautiful fool who takes my seat next to you, from Evermore, the album. Off the top of my head, I can't arrive at the track name. But okay, just anytime I hear her say Daisy a little bit, like, I think Daisy Buchanan, or I think Once Was Poison Ivy, Now I'm Your Daisy, kind of some of the lore that Daisy carries throughout the Taylor discography. So it is interesting, I guess, in this context, because we have explored Daisy as a theme throughout her discography. Penny's Unlucky, I Took Him Back, and then Stepped on a Crack, and The Black Cat Laughed. Like, this whole idea of, like, being superficial, or superstitious, not superficial, being superstitious and, like, anxious, I guess, about this thing that feels good or that you have a lot of hope for romantically, I think is like I think that's a fun thing to explore in a song. This later turns into a very, and you'll save all your dirtiest jokes for me, and at every table I'll save you a seat. We see the extent by which Taylor maybe meant that. This is an innuendo-laden song, and I, quite frankly, cannot go through any more lyrics on live stream at work. But there's Wood, which doesn't really fit into the showgirl narrative for me at all. So then that is, again, it's a bit when we arrive at, I have a hard time separating this album from the paternity testing practice, where, like, I can't figure out a thesis and follow it. I instead do feel like I have to be confronted by Taylor Swift trademark, what we know about her so-called personal life, that is not very personal or private, I would assume. Like, we have to kind of just lean on that understanding of what her life might look like to really make sense of why certain songs fit onto the album, because there is not necessarily a clear, succinct way to understand thematically what we are doing, where we look at the music, break it down to talking about a speaker, their intentions, their trustworthiness, the journey that they go on throughout the album. So then I sort of circle back to, well, I guess I just have to consider the showgirl, which maybe that's the point. If it is, ding, 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 we have a winner. Next is Canceled. I'm going to have a hard time talking about Canceled too, if I'm being totally honest. I think we are at a day and age, if I'm being totally frank, where boiling down cancel culture, the way I feel the song does boil down cancel culture, feels bad faith. And a little bit, we're at a current moment where being so flippant about cancellation, or about being like, all my friends are canceled, that's the company I keep, I'm not a fan of that. That's all I'll say. I don't connect with that sentiment, and I don't love it. I'm not keen on the fact that the speaker on this album is peddling that sentiment. And also, I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in believing that because the company you keep has been canceled, that they can't seek to gain anything from this person. But again, the speaker at hand is positioning themselves as this tragic victim. I feel like they're looking like the grass is always greener, I guess. And when the grass is always greener, you don't understand, and you're not in your power. You're not in your power necessarily, which is like such a weird girl bossy way to say it. But I guess you cannot conceive of the fact that you are a free agent, and then you're not understanding that like these people, this company that you're keeping that is canceled, it's not that they don't seek to gain anything from you. It's that you're not conceiving of yourself as above that company, and you're not seeing that they are using you. Instead, this song is a little bit like they're not using me and they never left me behind because they're canceled too. Which is interesting to me. I don't know. I have a hard time with that one. But again, like canceled and wish list and father figure all sit on this plane of power dynamic that is very off-putting to me. But I think, again, that is the point of art. I think it's fascinating to me that it is so off-putting. And I really am trying to dig deeper into the lyrics and figure out what story we're being told so I can sit with that off-puttingness and figure out the value to be to analyze. I guess I'm trying to figure out what narrative is being told, or what story is being told, what to do with this power dynamic narrative. And I haven't arrived at that yet. And the truth of the matter is I've only done one listen, and I'm trying to verbally process through it on live with y'all. But if I'm being honest, the stage that I'm at with this is, I see father figure, I see wish list, and I see canceled, and those together. Oh, and actually romantic. Those together, I feel like we are learning about the speaker in such a distasteful way. And I haven't gotten to the eureka moment where I figure out the value of recognizing the distaste in this reality. Because I have to believe that when you're putting something forth like this, there is value in recognizing the distaste in reality. There's got to be some sort of moral or lesson or reason to put it forth in this way. And I still don't know what the speaker is trying to tell us. Honey's kind of a straightforward song to me, a little bit, in terms of anyone calling me sweetheart, passive aggressive at the bar, someone telling me, okay, this is really interesting to me, the third line of the chorus, and the B word was telling me to back off because her man had looked at me wrong. If anyone called me honey, it was standing in a bathroom, white teeth. So we're talking about kind of like smile more, right? We're like kind of talking about that sentiment. And it is pretty interesting to me, the choice creatively to change the lines in Better Than Revenge to he was a moth to a flame, she was holding the matches. The choice to change the agency in that statement, the change the framing in it, to, let's say it, to make it a bit more feminist, and then to write a line like, and the B word was telling me to back off because her man had looked at me wrong. That's tough. Clearly, I guess the speakers between these two albums are different. They're making different choices in terms of framing things. And so that stood out to me. But okay, essentially, okay, then back, yes. Redefined all of those blues when you say honey. So we're back to a little bit like a bit of the blues and golden, and conceiving of love as a color, which is fascinating. So that fits across the discography in terms of tracking themes and symbols and their role across songs. But yeah, Honey to me is like a Sweet Nothing song where it's a double-edged sword tonally a little bit. All you ever wanted from me was nothing. Certainly when you consider that song now, all you ever wanted from me was nothing. Feels a bit different. If again we want a paternity test and think about it in that way, analyze it in that way. But I guess those are my thoughts on Honey. Honey is meant to be sort of a sweetie, like, I didn't ever like it when anyone called me honey before, but you call me honey and I like it. So there's that. Again, don't totally know how that fits into the life of a showgirl or sort of a commentary on fame or behind the scenes of fame. So that's interesting. And then now we'll move on to the title track, The Life of a Showgirl, featuring Sabrina Carpenter. I'm sort of skimming these albums live. She was, let's look at this. She was a menace, the baby of the family in Lenox, Massachusetts. The Berkshires, well known for being the home of Tanglewood music venue. Okay, so there's a lot here, actually. If you go ahead and look at the Genius annotations, there's someone has taken one from the team and really given a great amount of insight into the behind the scenes of this. And I'm ashamed to say I have probably given way more of a look at the lyrics of the whole rest of the album, more so than the title track. But I think that's like probably a good place to leave this. I will promise that I will dive in and look more into this. Those are my initial thoughts that I've just shared. By no means do I think that I have the right opinion. I guess I'm just kind of verbally processing through my initial reception of the album. And I'm really trying to make sense of the narrative and make sure that everything that can and is meant to be received and analyzed about the album after listening and consuming it as a piece of art has been on my part. Like I'm fascinated and interested in doing my part as an audience member and thinking about that. I will say I'm very excited to see how the rest of the album release weekend plays out, what else might be in store. I'm always excited to read fan theories and fan analyses. I'm interested in what sort of the rest of the community has to say about sonically what's going on. I'm always interested in learning more about the interpolations, the features, the production hands that have had a role in this. And so in days and weeks to follow, I will certainly be doing my homework in that regard. But these are sort of the raw thoughts and some of the questions I have and musings as I have just been given this new wonderful Taylor Swift album that I'm almost certain I will be spending more time with, as I do with all Taylor Swift albums when they come out. But I think it's fun to sort of be at this final place of, okay, there's work to be done in terms of understanding the actual title track, final album closer better. And I feel like that's a fun, like, pointing you all to do the same and like pointing everyone back to the lyrics and to whether you already love it or not, or you hate it or whatever, you don't care. You're probably not like watching this if you don't care. But I guess just like a final reminder to like form your own theories, think your own thoughts, read the lyrics, come to your own conclusions. Not that you need me to tell you that. I don't know. But I guess that's the sort of stance I'm trying to take and the position I'm trying to proceed with as I move through this album release cycle. It's bops on bops on bops, though, to reaffirm that, like, I will be listening to all of this no matter what. I'm just hoping to arrive at a place where some of the lyrics resonate with me more, or not resonate with me more, but I gain a better understanding of why the artistic choices were made, and if there's maybe better, stronger themes that I'm missing, because I'm so open to the fact that I'm like missing them. So I'm going to spend more time with the album. I'm excited for it. I'm eager to see whatever the music video is going to be. I think the visuals for this album are insane. I have a hard time with the font, but I'm picky about fonts, so it's no big deal. But yeah, I guess that's like that's everything. That's all I have to say. Yeah. I hope you have a great Friday. If you are going to one of the viewing parties this evening or across the weekend, have so much fun. And make it a make the friendship bracelets take the moment and taste it moment. Don't let it be about the showmanship. Let it be about the community. And as someone who grew up going to Star Wars conventions and has a first-hand experience with no one hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans, don't be the no one hates Taylor Swift or no one hates Swifties like Swifties. Engage, and I would urge everyone and remind everyone to be fun. Like, don't killjoy it. I say very flippantly after talking all about my thoughts without any interaction or discourse for an hour and 10 minutes on live stream. I know. Do as I say, not as I do. Which maybe could also be the thesis statement of this album. Who knows? Anywho, have a great weekend. Swifties are up. We're getting more. We're getting fed. We love it. I will see y'all next week. Good.